to Virginia with the 2024 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. What are we doing in Virginia, and where is Megan? Well, she's at home in Atlanta, Georgia. What are we doing in Virginia? Well, we just got back from West Virginia, where we were with Camp Toyota, which is sort of an annual event Toyota does where they bring together some of their off-road models, usually the newest ones, and we do a bunch of off-roading, but more importantly, we go on kind of longer drives. And this gives us a chance, people like me, to see what something like the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro is within its natural element, which is sort of the off-road environment, testing its off-road capabilities, which are considerable, or in the sort of day-to-day environment. We're in Stanton, Virginia, which is the first time I've ever been here, and it's quite beautiful. And we are seeing, like, over the course of like road trips, what is this vehicle like to live with on a daily basis? Like when you drive it for a couple hundred miles after absolutely thrashing it in the woods. So let's talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware first, in case you've, been sleeping under a rock lately and you don't know what the powertrain, the transmission, and the off-road capabilities are. This is the iForce Max. And, people have their opinions about the iForce Max. I have my opinion, and I will share it with you right now. 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque, which is electrically assisted because this is technically a hybrid motor. What does that mean in off-road driving? Well, here's how I view it, okay? I'm gonna throw out all the long-term reliability discussions because we can't make those discussions until we actually have long-term reliability data. And so if you wanna jump in forums and go chirping on your opinions about what's gonna happen to this engine without any data to back it up, well, you go knock yourself out. I'm gonna tell you what I experienced by actually driving the vehicle in the real world. I know, bold, hot take, but that's what we're gonna do here. So 465 pound-feet of torque, which comes on instantaneously thanks to the electric motor, is phenomenal when you're in an off-road situation. The 8-speed automatic transmission behaves stellar. We're gonna get a little bit more into the off-road goodies in a second, but from a powertrain standpoint and a fuel economy standpoint, you're getting sort of what I would call break-even fuel economy versus the last gen Tacoma, but the upside is a massive increase in power and torque, and I think a more flexible sort of driving experience off-road. I cannot overstate it. Having that electrical assist coming on with that torque at 0 RPM and allowing you to crawl out of things under sort of a more controlled circumstance, a more controlled input from the driver, it's just awesome in the way it interfaces with the technology that we're gonna talk about in a second. It's just seamless. So having driven these vehicles off-road, we had the TRD Pro, we had the Trailhunter, and we also had the new Land Cruiser. I really like the way that this powertrain behaves in those environments, okay? So get that out of the way, like right from the start. On the road, driving normally, that power is fantastic. Fuel economy is decent. I'm not gonna quote numbers because we are using the same tanks of fuel that we were kind of off-roading and doing a lot of crazy driving on. So fuel economy right now is not good because it's not good when you're off-roading. But generally, I think seeing kind of in the mid-20s is totally believable, totally reliable. And the 8-speed's decisions in highway driving, they put the previous gen Tacoma to shame, where the previous gen Tacoma's automatic would be a little confused and hunty in sort of normal situations. You see none of that with the 8-speed automatic in the current new, I'm interchanging these, makes no sense, in the new Toyota Tacoma. So if you're looking for a more refined powertrain experience that gives you more flexibility off-road, I think you're gonna be very happy with what this thing can do. Now let's talk a little bit about that off-road hardware that you get in the TRD Pro and how it might compare, or how it might compare to the Trailhunter, but how it also might react off-road. All right, so let's talk about some of the good stuff real quick while I show you some awesome footage of what this thing can do off-road. So let's start with the tires. These are Goodyear Wrangler Territories. They are 33 inches and they performed great out on the trail. Obviously, we don't have a point of comparison. We just had these, but these are pretty fantastic tires. Now, you do get the Fox QS3 shocks, okay? And this thing has a 2-inch front lift and a 1.5-inch rear lift. You get the hydraulic bump stops, and you also get the remote reservoirs on the rear shocks. So you get a ton of stuff, and the adjustable shocks can be kind of tailored in for like more road-based, more terrain-based stuff like that. You also get the forged upper control arms, which sort of became a TRD Pro signature on the last gen Toyota Tacoma, and they look super cool. And then you also get sort of specifically tuned springs and things like that for off-road duty. So the package that this thing has is comprehensive. Now, are they as good as the Multimatic dampers in the ZR2 Bison or I think the Fox shocks in the Ranger Raptor? I am not going to say, because I don't think that that's appropriate to say without driving these things back to back. So without a proper comparison test, I don't want to speculate on those. However, I do want to speculate, not speculate because I actually did this, I want to tell you what I think about the Fox shocks on the TRD Pro, on these TRD Pros, on this TRD Pro versus the Old Man Emu shocks on the Trailhunter. I'm gonna keep you in suspense, just kidding. I like the Trailhunter better, personally. I think that because it's sort of set up more for rock crawling, doing more of the kind of work we were doing with it. My buddy Hanson from Shifting Lanes and I just spent the past couple hours driving the Tacoma Trailhunter back to the resort that we're staying at here in Stanton, Virginia. And I found the ride to be incredibly pleasant on the highway. And I also found the body control on the trail. I really liked it. I liked it a lot. I felt like it took the impact and it would compress, and then on rebound, it would control itself and you get like one solid kind of motion, and then it's back to stability. It's like it's back to being stable again. I like that. I just prefer that type of ride handling balance versus something that's like a little bit softer and more compliant. I feel like the Foxes might be like a little bit more compliant. And that's probably because this is sort of set up more for that high speed running, right? Where it's gonna be coming down harder on those shocks. So it needs like a little bit more of that softness, that travel. It's got the hydraulic bump stops and all that, the remote reservoirs. I get that, but I'm just telling you from personal experience, I sort of tended to like the way that the Old Man Emu shocks performed on the Trailhunter better for me in these environments than I did the TRD Pro. You would have to see, like, where do you live? What are you gonna be doing with your truck? And then you make the right call for you. For me, probably leaning Trailhunter on this one. All right, I gotta talk about some good and some bad stuff here in the interior of the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. First of all, let's talk about the good stuff. The good stuff is, compared to the previous gen Toyota Tacoma in any form, TRD Pro or otherwise, this interior is light years beyond that, especially when it comes to the driving position. Now, I am almost 6'6". I'm incredibly tall. And as you can see here in this driving position, I have plenty of room. I can adjust the wheel wherever I want. In fact, I don't even think I have the wheel adjusted for me. Someone else was driving this last, so I have plenty of space for my legs. I can adjust the wheel. Now, the isodynamic seats, let me talk about that briefly because I don't think I specifically highlighted them when I was showing some of the off-road footage. The isodynamic seats, I feel like you notice a difference with the isodynamic seats when you're off-roading. Here, kind of in this environment, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. So I do think some people are gonna make a little bit of a, concession getting these when you see the reduced rear seat room in a truck that already has reduced rear seat room. Off-roading, I do think you notice a sort of stability that's not there in something like the Trailhunter or the TRD Off-Road, okay? So I just want to throw that in there because the seats are great, wonderfully supportive, they feel comfortable, and the isodynamic functionality. If you're really gonna take this truck off-roading and you're gonna be doing anything kind of higher speed for high type of stuff, going over like, subtle jumps and undulations, you'll notice they'll pay off. If you're not, then maybe you should be leaning to the Trailhunter anyway. I think that's up to you. Technology, 14-inch infotainment screen, massive, huge, great, Digital gauge cluster, awesome. This thing's fully loaded. You got the cool light bar controls here. I really do like the interior of this. I'm not the biggest fan of some of the off-road interface. I'll show you a couple pictures of it where the dial is down here. I think ergonomically, just sort of like logically, the way that these off-road controls in the interior are laid out in the Land Cruiser makes a little bit more sense to me. That's just a personal preference, but it's not my favorite. I think everything else, big, chunky, you know, you could drive this thing wearing gloves in the wintertime, like whatever. I think it makes a lot of sense. This looks cool with the white outside and the red and black interior. I have to admit though, for the price that these trucks cost, I've been driving the Land Cruiser back to back with these a lot, and I've really kind of fallen in love with the Land Cruiser. If you don't need the absolute functionality of the truck, or you have a specific reason to get the pickup truck, me personally, I'm having a hard time sort of separating my feelings for the Land Cruiser from the TRD Pro and the Trailhunter. I think this and the Trailhunter look absolutely amazing. It looks the business like this, but the interior of that Land Cruiser just feels a little bit more price appropriate. And considering how capable it is off-road, if you're on the fence for some reason between the two, you might find yourself leaning a little bit more to the Land Cruiser. Other than that though, this is a huge improvement over the last Toyota Tacoma. Now, I'm singing a lot of its praises. I'm going to have to show you something that's probably a big drawback, even if you're a normal size person. Okay, so here's the problem. My camera bag is sitting right here. I'm going to move this over and show you. This is where I have the isodynamic seat set for someone my size at nearly 6'6". As you can see, this is not really habitable for human like occupancy, all right? I can't even really enter the vehicle with the seat like this. So I can kind of climb in and no, that's it, I'm done. I can't get into the vehicle. So this, to me, as someone who is incredibly tall, the isodynamic seat sort of renders this a two-person, maybe three-person vehicle. Now, you know, sort of mid-sized trucks in general aren't known for having capacious back seats. There's your vocab word for the day. But the Tacoma's is still on the small side. And when you add that extra hardware of the isodynamic seat, you're losing some of the, let's say, practical functionality of the rear seat space. So just keep that in mind. If you are truly into off-roading and you don't have that consideration, or you just want to put some dogs or something back there, you know, you do you, it's fine. But if you're looking at it as a possible family vehicle, your children are going to outgrow this rear seat space very quickly. So just, you know, try it out and be conscious and know going in that that isodynamic seat is going to eat into a ton of rear seat space for anybody over like 5, I'm just kidding, anyone over 4 feet tall. Thought I was gonna say 5, no, it's like 4. So let me know what y'all think about this Tacoma TRD Pro. Now, one thing I know that we haven't talked a ton about is the price. And the price is kind of scary, okay? That is probably something that I have a hard time reconciling myself. And that is coming from someone who has just spent the last several days living with this machine in the harshest of sort of trail environments. Well, maybe not the harshest environments, okay? You've seen videos of this thing going around like Moab and stuff like that. These are just sort of like very extreme woodland trails, which admittedly is more of the Trailhunter's forte than it is the TRD Pros. But forget all that, I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm talking about price, and the price on this is quite high. You are getting a lot, you really are. You're getting a massive amount of torque, some reasonable fuel efficiency, you're getting some excellent off-road hardware, you're getting these awesome looks all updated, but you are paying a price premium of the better part of like, you know, like 15 grand or more for this updated Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. Is it worth it, in my opinion? Well, when you look at the top tier of what sort of that midsize truck category has become, you look at things like the ZR2 Bison, you know, with the Chevy Colorado. You look at something like the Ford Ranger Raptor, which undercuts this in price. The waters of this sort of price segment have gotten awfully murky, and you have to decide, like, okay, well, that Ranger Raptor is undercutting this in price. It's a very good truck. There's a lot of things to like about it. Personally, I like the interior more on the Tacoma. I like the looks more of the Tacoma. I don't know if I like the powertrain more. I would have to do them back to back. I feel like they both have pretty torquey, powerful, you know, engines. And then that sort of off-road handling, I think a lot of it depends on what you plan to do with the truck. Now, let me sort of contextualize it like this, because I don't want to make excuses for the price of the TRD Pro, because it is a very high price. It's an expensive truck. I think this thing is insanely capable, but one thing that became clear to me over the course of the past several days is that, first of all, I've fallen in love with the Toyota Land Cruiser. And if you watch any of the content that I'm making about the Toyota Land Cruiser from this trip, just prepare to see me kind of gush over the Toyota Land Cruiser. And also don't be surprised if you see a Toyota Land Cruiser end up in our driveway, because I literally think that's the perfect car for Megan to replace our old Suburban we just got rid of. Back to trucks. I think the Trailhunter, for me, living on the East Coast, driving roads like these. I mean, we've been in West Virginia going on these like challenging technical off-road courses, going on these gravel Forest Service roads, up and down, you know, undulating highways. The old man emu shocks in the Trailhunter, for me personally, if I were going to spend this kind of money on one of these trucks, I would personally lean to the Trailhunter. I like it more as a total package. I think it does more of what I want it to do. I like the ride handling balance in the Trailhunter a little more. And in the woods of West Virginia, the Trailhunter was as much of or more of a beast than this thing was, okay? I also personally like the way it looks better. So that's kind of my opinion. I wanted to show you guys some of this thing performing in its environment, and also in an environment that I feel is a little bit more realistic to what people are likely to do with these things. You know, you see videos of these things going out to Moab and like going rock crawling and stuff, but I think your sort of normal off-road enthusiast probably lives somewhere like I do, near the foothills of some mountains or challenging roads, and they want to go up there, they want to challenge their truck, then they want to spray it off, drive back home, and they're going to drive to work the next Monday. And I think that's sort of similar to what we've been doing. We thrash these things on the off-road trails. The footage never does it justice, but it looked amazing. If you think that footage looks beautiful, it's because it was. It was absolutely beautiful. That being said, for that livable truck that has a little bit more creature comforts, has a little bit more rear seat room, and can do everything this thing can do off-road and more, my pick goes to the Toyota Tacoma Trailhunter. I think the value equation, as high as that price is, makes more sense to me there. Let me know what you think. I would love to know what you think. I love the way this thing looks, that sort of stormtrooper look with the black and red interior, but I would love to know what you guys think about the TRD Pro. Or would you lean towards Ranger Raptor, ZR2 Bison? Like, let me know. AT4X, the, GMC Canyon. Like, let me know what you guys think. I would love to know. I think that the opinions about these trucks are flying wild and free, but the actual facts about these trucks sometimes are sorely lacking. So if you would like to know anything else about it, comment down below. I'll respond to the comments down there with some actual, I drove it in the real world advice, not just speculation. Until next time, like, subscribe, all the good things. I'll see you soon.